Hello and welcome. This is going to be the first in a series of videos about building a 1969 Mustang Convertible I own. This one will be about thinking about the project before you even start, a couple of hints and tips, and the rest of the series will be more directly involved in certain aspects of the build itself. So enjoy. Well, moving right along, this one's going to be the hints and tricks, and you'll see by the following slide, this is how I intend to progress the actual series of videos, and it's as follows. The second part of this series will be the strip down, and that'll incorporate the strip down of the Mustang and also the donor vehicle, being the NL Fairlane. The third in the series will be the engineering side with the drivetrain, and that includes the right-hand drive conversion and some other details in relation to the inserting the drivetrain into the Mustang body. The fourth in the series will deal with the body itself and the work that was involved in that. Number 5 is the electrical. It was quite involved. I've added quite a lot of modern electrical fittings into this vehicle. And the last one will be just the reassembly and the finish off of the final project. In this video you may find a little bit of discouraging information or advice. It's not meant to be like that. It's purely just to make sure you go into a project with your eyes open. Trust me, when you finish the project and it's a good build, you're going to be able to have something physical that you can be proud of, and you can enjoy talking about it, sometimes boring people to tears, but it's all that you've done it, you've achieved this. So keep that in mind and just take the advice should you wish to, and go and have a good go at it. As you watch this, I think there's something you should know. I am not in any way trade qualified. I've been working on cars at home, and that's where all my experiences come from. I've built upwards of 20 plus cars in various levels, some small projects, some large. Of that, 5 of them have been full-on ground-up rebuilds, and I'll show you a few of those in terms of the pictures appearing on the video at the moment. 2 of those of the 5 were for my sons. We worked together and built them their first cars. The other 3 were a 1937 Plymouth Hot Rod, which was a 5-year project, and it won 3rd place sedan at the Victorian Hot Rod Show. Very proud of that one. Another one was a ground-up restoration of a 1976 XJ Jag sedan. And then finally is this current Mustang we're going to be talking about in this series of videos. So, as I say, it's all based on experience from a home builder perspective. Okay, so just so you're clear on that. Now, some of the tools you're going to need. Yes, there are professionals around that can do some of the work for you, and you can take things there, but it does prove to be expensive. Some of the things, particularly when you're talking body work, a MIG welder is invaluable. If you don't know how to MIG weld, then maybe do a course or get some practice earlier than actually starting to work on your car. Luckily, I invested in a small hoist in my garage, which made the back braking work so much easier because I could get under it on a mechanic stool and skirt around underneath the car to save myself some stress and some backache. Other tools, obviously, you've got to have a half decent set of tools in your garage. There's the basic screwdrivers, spanners, that kind of thing. And as you go through a project, you may find that there are tools you need to buy to do a particular job. In the home sort of environment, you don't need to go and spend mega bucks to get the professional ones, because you're only going to be using these on an infrequent basis. So do yourself a favour, get something that will do the job, and maybe a few other jobs in the future, but no need to invest in the high-grade professional items. So you've decided to do a project car. one of the decisions that you should think about is that what is the kind of car that will suit my needs in the future, and when it's finished, how am I going to use it? Because the prime reason why you're doing this project car is for you. If you finish this car project and it's really not what you want, you do and you have spent a lot of time and money on something that you're just going to try to sell. And we'll discuss later, you're not going to make any money from it. So pick the car that you want, and when it's finished, something that you desire and you'll enjoy into the future. Okay, before you get started on a project, there's a few decisions you have to make. Firstly, with the car you're going to build, are you going to restore it, build it as per the factory, or are you going to modify it? And this all comes down to your budget, your expertise. If you don't have practical skills and you're looking at getting a lot of professional work done, then consider your budget, because it is going to blow out. If you can't do the work, then it's going to be a very expensive project. So one of the first things you need to do is, where are you going to build it? If you do not have a suitable place to build this project, don't start. I've known people who have tried project building in their driveways beside their house, where they work under tarps and things like that. It doesn't work. So a suitable garage or similar would be the best option. Okay, before you start looking at building a car, you need to assess your own practical skills. If you haven't got them, then I suggest you build those with smaller projects, tidying up vehicles and that kind of thing, like an interior tidy, or a set of seats or some new carpets and tidy up, maybe polish. Things like that on smaller cars, do some mechanical work on it, and then build yourself up to the actual project itself, the big one, which is a tear down and rebuild. So in terms of money, set yourself a budget and know you are going to go over that budget. It's a give me. Unless you've got a very, very collectible rare car, then you are not going to make money on any kind of build. The parts alone will exceed what you could probably sell this car finished for value wise. And if you've got a collectible car and you're not a professional, then you won't realise the true value of that car in any kind of sale unless you have professional work done on it. Painting, upholstery, mechanical work, because you're not going to be able to give the quality that a collectible car buyer is going to be looking for. Now, in terms of the money, you see on these programs on TV how two guys buy a car that's half decent, and they put some time in, and a half-hour show, it tends to be very fast, and you can assume that they're going to put hours and hours into this car, and at the end of it they sell it and make £1,500 or £2,000. For the kind of hours you're going to put in, it just can't be justified. If you were trying to do this full time, you'd go broke in a hurry. So don't think that you're going to be building a car to make mega bucks as a return on your work in a month. And in terms of timing, we come to timing. Don't think that you're going to do this project, a decent project, in 6 months it's going to be done. A lot of these projects, and you talk to a lot of experienced home builders, and they're talking years. It can be cut down by adding professionals to do the work, and even then, if you get, for example, a professional to do the painting, unless you've got a really good relationship and a connection with this professional, your car is not going to be their priority. And you hear horror stories about giving a car to a painter, and 6 months down the track you go to see how the progress is, and there it is sitting in the corner under dust. So luckily, if you do get a good repairer and he's focused on your job, then it could be down to a 6-month job actually being worked on in the shop. Now, during this time, you could do some work at home on some of the other parts or some of the other areas of the car. So time-wise, it's not going to be a quick job. Part of your decision when you decide to build a car as a project, and let's assume that you're going to do what we call a ground up or a nut and bolt restoration. That means the car is going to come down to a bare body, and that's what I've done with my car, which we'll move into later. There is two ways of doing a car. You can either do it to original factory specs, or you can modify it. Now, modifying, it's really about taste and what you want to do. So when you make that decision, can I also suggest that the best way to modify a car, particularly an older car, to bring it up to more modern standards, is to buy what we call a donor car. With a donor car, it needs to be mechanically sound, so you can use a lot of the content in it and put it into your car. And this is where a little bit of modification comes into play. But it will save you thousands in the long run. If you choose to go down the modification track in terms of your project, you really should need to check with your local authority. They may have regulations that define what you can and can't do in terms of modifications. Another good thing is to talk to owners in car clubs of the particular vehicle. If you are going to go down the route of modification and your local area requires an engineer certification, the best thing you can do is get on board with an engineer straight away. Go and have a chat to them, tell them what you're planning, tell them your project, and you'll find their advice is invaluable. Because there's nothing worse than getting to the end of a build and having an engineer needing to certify this work, saying that you need to pull something down, you need to pull it apart so I can investigate it and inspect it. It's much easier if you have your engineer on board and they can progressively come out and inspect the work you've done and that it complies and is safe. Should you choose to go the original route and build a car to factory specs, one of the biggest considerations you've got to have is the availability of parts. If you get a car that's in half decent condition, it still doesn't matter, you are going to need replacement parts. If you can't find these replacement parts, then you're going to have to actually get them made professionally. So when you look at a car in terms of your project decision, what you want to buy, have a look on the internet, have a look in some, maybe the car club in relation to that particular car, and see what the availability of parts are. Because if you get halfway through a project and find you just cannot find parts, it's a very expensive exercise to get them made or fabricated. As you build a car, time does fly by, and it's always a great idea to actually take notes. At the end of each day, jot down a few notes, record them on a computer or something like that, because at the end of the project or halfway through, you may have to rely on that knowledge because a lot of time has passed and you may have forgotten how you've done it, and it's particularly important when it comes to electrical. Now, it took me 4.5 years odd to build my Mustang, and I actually every day made notes, and it culminated in this document. Now, this is a detailed account of everything I did. It has schematics of the electricals. It has pictures of particular build parts that I've actually done. It also covers decision making, what I was thinking at the time or how I went about something. Because over time, your memory obviously fades with the finer details. So when you go to delve into a possible problem, you can refer to these notes and half the answers are in there for you, or hopefully all of them. Take notes. Well, moving on to my project that's coming up in the next series of videos. My decision was I wanted a V8, I wanted a convertible, and I was looking at an Australian XABC hardtop at one stage, but the prices for those in very poor condition was just not worth the investment. So I bought the 1969 Mustang Convertible. It was in Australia already, and I decided to convert it over time to a right-hand drive. And I'd already had my garage set up ready for the project to begin. I had a budget and I basically had no timeline. So that's where I started, and in the next couple of videos you'll see how I've progressed and how it ended up. Thank you.